Anyways, thank you
Okay,
again,
Alexander,
Edward, for
let's just
joining.
simply have fun then, right?
You
Simply
got it.
have fun.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, I'll read a little bit of what I have here. Edward has spent nearly 3 decades in the heart of hospitality, from the floors of Michelin-starred kitchens to executive suites in celebrity-driven brands. But today, he occupies a unique, powerful vantage point. He coaches the leaders who are navigating all of it in real time. He is ICF Master Certified Coach, the highest credential in that field. And his lens on AI isn't about tools or workflows. It's about identity. Sorry. Why do you want to be a leader at this moment? Edward, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining. Um, let's kick it off by maybe having 30 seconds of 30-second version of describing what do you do these
Great.
days.
Perfect. Wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, I am a MCC coach and I work with executive leaders, not just in the hospitality industry, not just hotels and restaurants, but also within industries that have a hospitality mindset. There are industries like the medical field, like real estate, that customer service is really key to what is their success. So I am working with those leaders overcome hesitancy, overcoming fear, overcoming lack of clarity to determine what their vision of success is so that they can align their teams and execute on what matters most. That's in
Wow.
essence what I do, Alexander.
I love it. Amazing. I think oftentimes, people that jump into the industry don't understand how much crossover it is from some of the skills that we learn in our trade. It's always refreshing to hear people that have been in the trenches for so long and are able to just really reach out to other sectors, right, in a natural way. Um, you've been, in the trenches for 30 years, Michelin-starred restaurants, celebrity-driven brands, right? What was that world like at its peak, in your words?
At its peak, it was fun. It was exciting. Everybody wanted to be in the hospitality world, particularly in major cities like Los Angeles and in San Francisco and either Chicago and New York, whatever city you are, or maybe even Nashville. It's like people wanted to be in this industry. It was to be surrounded by people who loved serving people, to be surrounded by innovation and food. And many people were proud to be in that industry. I was certainly proud, and I was excited to possibly own my own restaurant. I got a culinary degree. I got a master's in hotel restaurant tourism because that was the vision of what exciting and fun career would look like. So, and that was at the peak. Restaurants were making money. The drive of celebrity chefdom, inspired people to take their hobbies and turn it into a career. That's what the peak looked like.
Yeah. I think that the restaurant business definitely has evolved a lot, and I truly look back and I remember that euphoria at some point, right, where all the celebrity chefs kind of took a role in a way in the whole restaurant scene, and that changed the whole business, right? All of a sudden, you have more of these institutional restaurants, and then everything became much more focused, right? Chef focused and chef driven, and that brought so many people in, right? I would say, what do you see that has shifted, throughout your career in restaurants to the restaurant business now? What have been the major changes that you've seen?
Well, pre-COVID. Let's start with pre-COVID. There we saw institutions and large chains um, buy up, market share, in smaller communities, and those standardized menus and the efficiency that is created, with these larger institutions, often took over the character of smaller institutions, the smaller restaurants, family-run establishments, unique menus. So we saw, pre-COVID, a lot of chains, that popped up everywhere, and everybody saw the same menu items, and there wasn't as much innovation, outside of the major cities. People got kind of bored, with menus, with dining experience, and perhaps what our customers were looking for were reliability rather than innovation. Now, that's my experience pre-COVID. However, post-COVID, we know how much has changed. It's a volatile, uncertain, chaotic, ambiguous world out there, and COVID changed the industry. Hospitality was devastated, and beyond that, after COVID, you know, then came the economic environment that changed everything, then politics, and then, in this past year, how immigration policies have affected, our industry. So much has changed, and we're seeing a lot of closures in hotels and restaurants and cafes and commercial kitchens, because not everyone can adapt, and that's what we're seeing that the industry is dealing with right now.
Yeah. Yeah, I must agree. I think that you're hitting it right in the bullseye, and I think that if there's the number one challenge that a lot of restaurants are having right now is finding the human resource. Um, I'd say, and maybe you can share your perspective, right? What is important for restaurants, restaurateurs, restaurant organizations, right, to be able to hold up now, to be able to retain employees, capture the right employees? Um, do you think that they can just operate and expect people to just knock on the door, or are there any changes that really people need to be considering in order to build a proper culture to retain employees?
Well, you hit the right word, and I think it's culture.
Mm.
In previous decades, managers and owners hired for skill set, right? And with the age of artificial intelligence, skill sets are much more democratic, and universal. You can learn a lot, and we're not just talking about front of the house, back of the house. We're also talking about other parts of the hospitality industry. We're talking about marketing. We're talking about finance. We're talking, there are other components just outside of service that are related to the hospitality industry. So I think in regards to retention specifically that you were asking about, it's not about hiring for skill set, but instead about mindset. And that mindset is more particularly with the younger generation whose first jobs might be in the hospitality, is a sense of belonging, is a sense of passion, and if you can create that connection to your team at every level of your organization for a sense of purpose and belonging, that is what is going to keep people around. It's not just about pay anymore. We're seeing that people are leaving because there isn't a sense of, why am I here? Why should I spend 6 to 8 hours or maybe more of my day surrounded by people that I don't care about, who are not aligned with my values? So hire for those kind of people who share similar values, share similar mindset, and then consistently cultivate that sense of belonging through your culture and policies.
I love what I'm hearing. I think that overall, true leadership, right? It's really the asset that is sometimes hard to find, and you pivoted your career towards being able to develop that. When did that happen? When did you say, "Wait a minute, there's this gap," or you know, I think that there's a need, right, for being able to bring up or raise people to be able to lead teams?
Great question. I'm a coach now, but I wasn't always a coach. I was in operations in hotels and restaurants. I put myself through college, being a server. I wanted to own a restaurant. That's why I got my culinary degree and got my continued education. I spent nearly 3 decades, in the hospitality industry. It was my identity, what who I was. But after I felt that I was near the pinnacle of my career, I experienced something that I never would, at the time, would want people to go through. I was experiencing burnout. I became irritable. My relationships were horrible. I was gaining weight. And there's all these things about burnout. That are present. People recognize that. And my boss at the time recommended that I get a coach, a leadership coach, and because he had a coach. And the intention at the time was to change my work experience, to be able to communicate better, to have more work life balance, to set boundaries, to develop strategy. And for that year of coaching, I did, that happened. But then I realized that everything that got me to that success there wasn't going to get me where I wanted to be in the future. I wanted to spend more time with my family. I wanted to spend more time on my health. I wanted to reconnect with friends that I hadn't seen in a while. I basically wanted to have more joy in my life, and I had a lot of joy in the hospitality industry for the previous decades, but I wasn't experiencing that. So my coach helped me, transition and say, what do I really value in my life? What's my passion purpose? What do I want to experience? And I realized, serving, steaks and scallops and wine was not in the future. Instead, I wanted to do something different. And what I experienced in my transformation through coaching, I realized that other people need this as well. So I decided to quit the hospitality industry cold turkey and become a coach. And through the support, mental, spiritual, financial, all of that of my wife, I was able to do that. And so I was able to transition. I want to give that transition and the transformation to everybody else who wants it. That's why I'm a coach today.
Amazing. Well, a lot of resonance in what you're saying. Again, I was just like you in the trenches for many, many, many years, and kind of pivoted into a lane where I discovered some of those skills to lead teams and to build teams, and there was a lot of satisfaction that came to that. I mean, you hold an MCC, which is the highest designation of coaching. What did it take to get there?
Well, let me just say it took a lot of resilience. It took a lot of connection to purpose, but that's the internal things. Externally, the logistical factors, it meant that I had to coach over 2,500 hours with clients in a variety of fields, got through testing and to be assessed by peers in a credentialing, society. So it's the high standard. But more than that, to become a masterful coach is to be fully present, to be fully present with whoever I'm serving, my clients or who I refer to as thinkers across from me. But, I also say that that presence and being fully an active listener is not just for a coach, it's for anybody. It's, how you want to show up as a spouse, how you want to show up as a leader at work, or how you want to show up as a leader in your church. It's being masterful as a coach is just creating a space for others to experience growth and joy, and that's regardless of how many hours, or how many clients you work with. If you can do that, in your first coaching session, then you're a masterful coach. You don't have to go through all those hours. It's how you show up, how you want to be. And that's the essence of coaching, helping people understand who they want to be.
I love it. Seems like it's not just a one way street, meaning you embark and just offer one perspective, but it's a complete transformation, right? And you're impacting in many aspects that I think that people that are so tied into the professional, their professional career, sometimes miss out, right? And showing up to community, showing up to your spirituality are all so important. Let me ask you, just from a perspective of how you approach your job. Uh, you know, what is that engagement like? You meet a GM, let's say, or a VP. What's the first thing you actually do?
The first thing I actually do is check their engagement about why they want coaching. You know, some people, they're excited. They see an opportunity. Hey, I get to, you know, claim that I want to be different. Other people, it's more, they've been assigned coaching. It's like you need to do this if you want to
The
keep your job.
requirement, yes.
Yeah, it's a requirement. So first and foremost, I just check in. Is coaching right for you? Is this what you want? My preference and my style is, if you don't want to be here, don't be here. I don't hold clients hostage, because if you don't want to be here, you're not going to make the transformation that is being asked of you, whether internally or externally. Okay, so just check in. Is coaching right for you? But after that, just um, setting the stage about what coaching is. And coaching is basically a conversation with an action item at the end of it. Understanding where are you today and where do you want to be, whether in 10 years, 5 years, at the end of our conversation, where do you want to be? And understand, if this is where you are now and this is where you want to be, what's getting in the way? And let's address that. Let's chip away at the external thoughts that you have. Oh, I don't have enough money. I don't have enough, of time. Or is it more internal? Do we have to address fear, hesitation, confidence levels? So, and through that conversation, we take the smallest steps possible to create momentum to basically get to where they want to be. And the client gets to decide where they want to go and how fast I want to get there. I help them just create more awareness, to make that happen.
You work across hospitality, but also, you do retail, medical, real estate, as you mentioned. What's the common thread? What makes leaders coachable regardless of the industry?
Regardless of the industry, and particularly I work with leaders, okay, is that there are three components to extraordinary leadership. It's the ability to clarify and to communicate their vision. Okay. The second thing with the leaders that I work with is that they're working with teams, either direct reports or cross functional colleagues, where they need to get alignment and buy in. And the third one is that oftentimes they would like to be more effective in giving and receiving feedback so that they can change and pivot where appropriate. Those are the common themes, oftentimes, and many people are not clear on what they want to accomplish. Okay. And many people don't know how to leverage their skills and how to be much more influential about, how to um, appeal to who they're working with and understanding what motivates them and to find common ground. So if I can help people clarify and align their vision and communicate better, people are often going to be much more successful.
Uh, Kind of piggyback on a comment that you mentioned earlier, or essence of the comment, and something that you also mentioned on our pre-podcast call. Um, expertise is no longer the hiring factor. Can you unpack that?
Sure. As I mentioned before, artificial intelligence, has made knowledge much more accessible. Much. You can learn more so much faster. Even if you're going to um, get hired as a server, you can learn wine knowledge very, very fast. Okay, right? And or if you are going to be hired as a bookkeeper, you can learn charts of accounts really, really quickly. That may not be required through formal education anymore. So that level of expertise when you're hiring may not be required to be on a resume. May it, or as far as references go about what you know. So instead, when I am working with leaders on developing the right team, instead of on skill set, it's like, who do you want to surround yourself by? You know, who are the people that inspire you? Who are the ones that you can share an intention towards? A direction. Who are you going to believe in? Who's going to believe in you? And basically create a sense of an environment. It's like, I want this person with me on the floor, you know, because they share the same values of me. And those values could be congeniality, it could be about reliability, or if your values are about innovation and breaking the mold, maybe that's the mindset that you want to hire, because there are restaurants, and I'm going to even use maybe a fast food chain that we all know, about the kind of person they want to hire, right? Because it fits the brand that they hire. Okay. And now that team member, at one fast food chain, may not be relevant for another fast food chain. You know, the people that are hired at Chick-fil-A may not be as successful as those who are being hired at McDonald's or vice versa. Right? Different teams, different cultures, different values. And I promise you, the people that are hiring at Chick-fil-A, they're looking for somebody who is specific for their culture. You know, the people that are hiring at McDonald's, they're hiring for a specific culture. Neither of them are right or wrong. Neither of them. But instead, are they consistent in understanding what they value, and are they hiring for it?
Yeah. Um, a few things pop into mind. Obviously, I think culture is definitely a big one. And I guess my question is there a specific mindset or approach, right, that a leader must uphold in order, right, to feed that culture? And where does it start? Where's the starting point, right? Where do you see, Edward, that you can plant that seed in order to grow the right environment in a workplace?
Well, because the world and the hospitality industry is changing so much, it's hard to keep up, you know? And when you're asking your restaurant or your hotel or your retail outlets to stay competitive in a very changing world, you're also asking your team to be able to change with the demands. So the mindset that I encourage as the leader, but also passing it down to their team, are three things: resilience, curiosity, and agility. Things are going to change. You cannot stop things changing. Okay. But when things do change, can you recover emotionally, structurally, all of that? And this is where the resilience comes in. Understand things are going to be bad, things are going to be tough, but do we have the mindset to be resilient? And if we can be resilient, instead of having that victim mindset, What can I learn instead? And this is where the curiosity comes in, you know? If I've been so stuck about what worked and I'm realizing it's not working anymore, you know, what can I be curious about? What new innovations are available, or what ingredients, or what systems or processes or logistics, that are out there that I may not have learned. This is where the curiosity comes in. Okay. And when you start becoming embracing this curiosity, then understanding what do I want to choose to do? And this is the agility. This is understanding I get to pivot. And I'm using specifically the language I get to pivot instead of I
Hmm.
have to pivot,
Yes.
you know?
Yeah.
And I think that that phrase of get to rather than have to changes the motivation and the engagement that leaders and their teams need. So, again, I'm going to repeat resilience, curiosity, and agility.
Yeah. Incredible. Such a little, switch in perspective, right? And it just opens up and changes the way you approach, right? And you said something very, very, very powerful, right? And instead of looking at us from the lens of victimhood, right? You look at it, through the sense of an opportunity, right? I think that challenges really build character, and sometimes hard moments are really what bring out the best in people. So
And Alexander, I'm glad that you said those hard moments. I'm not going to say that resilience, curiosity, and agility are easy.
right.
Leadership is not easy. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
So, but understand if this is what's important for you, the hard work is worth it.
Yeah. So I know that you relate to a lot of executives. I think you mentioned you do coach executives on AI, but not which tools to use. Um, what are you actually doing during those conversations when you maybe talk about alternatives in this sense?
Alexander, thank you. Great question. I am not an expert in artificial intelligence, or all of the platforms, ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, and all the other ones. I'm not an expert, okay? And I'm not going to advocate over one or the other because, if I'm not the expert, why should I consult you? But instead, about which to use or how to use it, I work with the executives with the idea of what kind of leader do you want to be that uses artificial intelligence? You know, what is your relationship to artificial intelligence that you really want to espouse? Now, everybody is at a different, stage of their relationship. Some people are Luddites and fearful. Some people totally embrace it and are ready to dive in, right? And so if we get to explore, where they are and what does authenticity look like as their leadership as they use artificial intelligence, that's what I get to work with them on, and again, it's about aligning their values. Some people, again, they're all about innovation and adventure, you know and that innovation adventure could apply in their professional life or could apply in their personal life, and that innovation and adventure is their relationship to artificial intelligence, and you can see they're willing to try everything, but if their values are more about safety and stability, and perhaps that's even the way that they approach their restaurants, we're not trying to change the industry, we're just trying to make sure that the 10 units that we have not make more money but just to stay stable, right? Then they're going to apply those values also to their artificial intelligence, their use of artificial intelligence. And so to understand what's important to them, and how do you how do you stay consistent with your own personal values and use that and apply that to your artificial intelligence? Because if you're looking for innovation and adventure, you're going to be very you know be very research oriented. What's the best prompt that I can use? How
Yeah.
can I use AI agents differently, right? But those leaders who are looking for safety and stability right now, they're going to be much more conservative in their approach to artificial, and both are okay, you
Right.
know, but just understanding their authentic approach, and that's how I help, um, those leaders.
I
Yeah.
love it. Um, do you see a common fear that maybe comes out in some of those that are a bit hesitant, right? Do you see maybe let's say a common pressure, right, something that people verbalize first when it comes to the topic of AI?
Yeah, there are many people who are not yet starting artificial intelligence. Their use of artificial intelligence is, how do I get it perfect and right? How do I find that perfect prompt? And do I trust the information that's coming out? You know, these new leaders who are just trying out, they may hear about hallucinations, in artificial intelligence, and say, "Can I trust everything? Is it going to provide more work than not?" And I would I would encourage those individuals, just to try it and learn and grow. Artificial intelligence, I would compare as a metaphor to like working with a virtual assistant, or a different language, 30 years ago, a secretary. On day one, your secretary is not going to get everything right. They're going to they're going to give you wrong information, maybe misschedule you, right? Because on day one, you haven't given them all the information about what's important to you, or how you like to work, or the kind of relationships you want to have, or all of that. So if we can't have that expectation for the first day of working with a secretary or virtual assistant, why should we assume that artificial intelligence is going to get things right if they don't know you? So you have to cultivate that relationship with whatever artificial intelligence, that you're using. You put in information and you say, "Remember this about me," you know? This is my perspective, or this is a sample of my email, this is the way I write. Use my tone, use my language, and if you can share with the artificial intelligence about who you are, and you front load that, and understand it's a long-term relationship, it's not going to be perfect on day one,
Yeah.
but cultivate the relationship with artificial intelligence, and if things are working for you, stick with that modality. If that particular artificial intelligence platform isn't working for you, fire it, find another one. Find the
Right.
one that works for you.
Exactly.
So,
Exactly. That's why that's great. Do you see perhaps moments or situations where maybe leaders are using the technology incorrectly? Do you find sometimes where maybe people are derailed using the technology?
yeah, some leaders have not been as effective in working with artificial intelligence to build relationships. They're expecting AI, to tell them, how do I work with my employees? How do I inspire them? Right? And those general questions are going to give you misleading answers.
Yeah.
Okay. Because it's not how I inspire my team members, but how do I inspire this particular team member who
Right.
has this kind of experience, who has this kind of perspective, and has these kind of challenges, right? It's customizing, you know, um, your relationship with artificial intelligence for specific contexts, specific situations. If you're trying to ask a general prompt and apply it universally in a very human connected industry, the application is going to go awry. You know, artificial intelligence cannot replace connection. Connection is about one on one conversations. Okay. And if you can connect and create a space of belonging, and where someone feels seen and heard, and you embrace that knowledge, then apply it into artificial intelligence, provide context
Yes.
so that you can be specific, rather than trying to apply general knowledge to everybody,
Yeah.
because, the unique experience of all of your team members and all of your customers and all of that stuff requires unique approaches. So don't make prompts or responses general, make them
Yeah.
unique.
Yeah. I spent a lot of years studying what they call the science of individuality, right? And it's called, a system called human design. And, it celebrates that uniqueness, right? And everybody has, completely different sets of trait. Um, do you see a value or importance in leaders being able to identify the people that they lead in that unique way, and how important maybe is it to be able to align with that the traits of that specific person in order to build a team? Is this something that you consider?
I don't think that it's something that people leaders should be just interested in. I think it should be a requirement.
Hmm.
If you're going to be a leader, the people that you directly lead, you should know quite closely what motivates them, what inspires them, what triggers them, what kind of environments do they succeed in, where are they feeling that they're not successful, so that you can learn what support and resources that they need. You know, it's important that you do that. Now, understand if you're at a higher level, you have hundreds of individuals underneath you, but your direct reports, the ones that you are seeing often, have those conversations and create an environment and a structure so that those kind of conversations with those leaders that you're directing, they have those conversations with the people below them. It's a trickle down kind of experience. This is what we're talking about, culture.
Yeah,
You know, you
exactly.
have your direct influence, but culture is is creating a vision about how your team would like to work, and let other people around you communicate that and
Hmm.
hold other people accountable to that culture. So it's not something that we just need to be interested. It has to happen.
Yeah. With AI, I would say we've been, I would say close to maybe 5 years since ChatGPT kind of came out to the market. And as you are able to, coach new leaders and maybe younger leaders, I don't know if necessarily that generation has reached there, but what do you see in some of these new leaders that don't know a world without AI? Do they have an upper edge? Or is it easier to coach? I mean, do you can you state maybe certain differences? What does that maybe look like in your perspective?
Well, it's not just artificial intelligence and ChatGPT. It's all technology. It's
Right.
all technology,
Yeah.
So their relationship, the younger generation, and when I say younger, I'm even going to include under 30 years old. Okay,
Yeah.
it's like, is that they're willing to try. They're excited about new possibilities. They're not afraid. Of of what's on the edge of their experience. They're curious, right? Um, what also technology is, in my experience of what's a requirement, is how how does their use of technology, give them a sense of belonging to a group. For example, I'm going to use Instagram or TikTok or social media. Are the other people that I want to be affiliated with using this platform? So that's where I want to be. Okay. Now, if other people are using, ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, or anything of the sort, right? Are the outputs that their generation is using? I want to learn that too. I want to be seen as equals to them. I want to be seen that I know just as much as them. So that's where I'm going to go, right? You know. So The new generation, they're going to go where they feel their peers and the people that they want to be are using. That's where they're going to go. That's why the younger generation, they don't use Facebook anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, the
Yeah.
people that who they want to be surrounded with, they're not using it. So why should they? You know? Yeah. Now, older generations, now their reason for using technology is different. It's not a sense of belonging, and
Hmm.
affiliation. You know, it's about competitiveness. It's about staying ahead of the game. You know,
Yep.
and and just even understanding why people use different technology or artificial intelligence. It kind of gives you insight about how they're applying it. To their companies.
Yeah. Do you see a difference in the younger generation of, let's say, um, what they ask for from their managers, um, versus, let's say, older generation, like myself? Do you see let's say, I don't want to say requirements, but are the younger generation asking for a different response or dynamic than older generation from their managers?
And you're talking just from their managers, not necessarily from artificial intelligence. Is that correct?
Yeah,
Yeah.
just from their managers, exactly. Yeah.
Okay. And everyone's different, unique, and this
Hmm.
and beyond, generational, there's some intersectionality about race or culture, or other forms of identity beyond, age. But if we're going to be focusing on age and generational, those millennials, Gen Z, and such, they're looking for freedom. They're looking for autonomy. They're looking for creativity, you know, and so they're going to ask from their managers, requests, or for them to express their freedom, their autonomy, their creativity. And if it's at work, great, you know. But if they're not getting at work, those generations are going to seek it outside. So they're going to ask for more time, to do that. Hey, can I have Friday off? Or there is a great weekend where I want to go to a festival,
Yeah.
right? But internally also that could look like, it doesn't have to be just, about getting time away from work. I want to show some creativity. So can I be on this project where I can work on a marketing campaign? you know or can I draw on the chalkboard a little bit? It can be, it can be large or small, but this younger generation, they really want to have self-expression, and that's what they're asking from their managers. Now, older generations are asking for something different.
Hmm.
you know they're looking for dependability, they're looking on loyalty, they're looking for efficiency, and you can see how those values are counterintuitive or maybe even compete with the younger generation. And it's not the goal to say which is right or wrong, but instead, these generations need to work together or should want to work together. So, where can we find that Venn diagram? Where can we collaborate? Where can we negotiate to make that happen? And this is where many leaders are trying to work with the either or instead of the yes and. It's not either or. Both need to exist.
So, quick question regarding what maybe you're seeing around hospitality leaders. Is there a question you wish they would be asking more right now? Um, and maybe they aren't. You see, are they, some of them? Well, I guess, to reframe that, are some of them missing the mark as far as some of the changes that are happening now, and they are a bit disconnected from the landscape that is happening?
Yeah, I think that many operators at a variety of levels are trying to figure out, how do I become more operationally efficient? How can I make more money? Okay. Um, And although that's important, I think there's actually a foundational thing that they should be asking instead is how do I stay connected to my customer? I went to a hotel a couple weeks ago just to share a quick story. And I opened up the door, and who was I greeted by at the front desk? Not by a person, but by a kiosk with a South Asian individual greeting me, through a screen.
Wow.
Yeah, there was nobody at the front desk,
Incredible.
you know?
Yeah.
And sure, they saved money. Sure, they were able to have 24-hour service. But boy, did they miss the mark
Right.
on, on greeting me efficiently, or coming behind the front desk and shaking my hand, or recognizing that I was tired after a long day of travel. They missed the connection, you know and so I think that that's the question that needs to be asked, is instead of how can I be more efficient or more profitable, is how can I make sure that I'm connected with the customer or even my team members so that they stay and they come back.
Yeah. Yeah. Edward, maybe I have one more last question. This probably could be a little bit related. But for those in leadership roles right now, um, those that have been grinding for years and feeling a bit disconnected, right? Uh, what would you say to them?
I would ask them, to envision, maybe 10 years, 20 years, ahead in the future, excuse me. And what is the life that they're expecting to have in 20 years? How will they know that they've been completely fulfilled and accomplished what they've wanted and needed, so that they're fulfilled rather than experiencing regret? I wish I would have done this. I wish I would have tried this. I wish that I had gotten this title in my career. I wish I had, traveled and all that stuff. And to be forward thinking about the life that they want, and then reflect: is what I'm doing right now going to create the momentum and the direction towards that? Okay. If it's yes, continue doing it, and surround yourself with the support and the resources to make sure you continue that direction. Okay. If it's not contributing to that life that you want to have, reconsider what needs to change.
Amazing. I was going to ask you for one more piece of advice or valuable piece of advice, but I think that one is so powerful that I left without any more questions. Listen,
Great.
Edward, this was such a delight. It was truly to really get to know you, to have this conversation. I think that you are on the top of your game, and it's been a true privilege, really, to have you on board. I mean, I look forward, and I only think for maybe being able to have a conversation again in the future. For those listening, maybe they're ready for coaching. How do they find you? How do they maybe explore what the opportunity of coaching can bring to them?
Great. Excellent. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to be on your podcast, having this extraordinary conversation, and to give me an opportunity for people to find me. People can see my name on a little label, Edward Vicedo. Actually, there is a D in there. I apologize. Vicedo. I
Don't
apologize.
worry.
It's Edward
I
Vicedo.
I will edit. Don't worry. I will edit.
Great. If you just Google me, I can be easy to find, as well as on LinkedIn. And connect with me. More than anything, connect me on LinkedIn. You don't even need my services. Just I'd love to meet other people in the hospitality industry or those with the hospitality mindset. Just to explore what is everyone dealing with, and how can I give, but also how can I receive. I want to be of service. The other thing is hospitalityleadership.coach is another way to find me. So start the conversation. I'd love to meet you.
I love it. Amazing. Well, Edward, again, very, very pleased for this time that you offered. Thank you so much. And then looking forward for the next. Okay.
Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you.